morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to this Google Think B2B tech event, coming to you live via Google Meet and YouTube. We're going to be kicking off in just a couple of minutes, which gives you a chance to grab a drink and allows me to share a few housekeeping notes. First up, you are cordially invited to get actively involved with the session. So if you have a question for any of our speakers, please use the chat function and we will do our very best to get through as many of them as possible during the Q&A. To get the best viewer experience and to see this broadcast in full screen, please click the pin button in Google Meet. And finally, feel free to open your camera so we can see you too. If we do ask your question, we'll put you up on the big screen where you always dreamed that you would be. Just don't forget to mute yourself, or very gently and very politely, we will have to do it for you. Welcome, everyone. We can see you. I can see you. Hello. Hello. For those of you who we can't see, we're just seeing little icons such as Eva and Martin and M and V and Margie and Ronnie and who else have we got watching? Hello, Hannah. Hello, Eugene. Hello, Tanya. These are the people I can see. Welcome. We'll be kicking off in just a couple of minutes. Hello, Tanya. Go on, let's see who can give me a wave. Who's there with the headphones, with the big headphones on at the top there in the red jacket? That is, I can't read your name from here. Hello there. And hello, Dugirdas, is it? With the purple cap. Hi. Good, thanks for joining us. Maxim, looking cool there. How's it going? Hello, Eva. Hello, Veronica. Hello, Yuval. Hello, Carlos. All right, I'm going to, hello, Carlos. We're going to just go back to our housekeeping notes for those of you that didn't hear it the first time round. So first of all, I want to make sure that you all get actively involved with the sessions. If you do have questions for any of our speakers, then do please use the chat function and we'll do our very best to get through as many of them as possible during the Q&A. And to get the best viewer experience and to see this broadcast in full screen, do please click the pin button in Google Meet. And finally, like our friends here, like Rowie and Eva and everyone else on the big screen, if you open your camera, we'll be able to see you too. So if we ask your question, we'll put you up there, all on your own, without all these other people joining you, for us to take a good look at you and when we read out your questions. So we'll be kicking off in just a couple of moments. And thank you. I'm going to say some more hellos. Hello, Sergey. Hello, Aviv. Hello, who else have we got here? Trying to say hello to people I haven't said hello to yet. Hello, Ronnie. I think I already said hello there. Okay, I think we are ready to kick off. So stay with us. All right. Hello and welcome to our second annual Google Think B2B tech event. Woohoo! That's the sound we would be hearing from the audience if you were able to be here in person. Good morning to those of you joining us from the Americas. Good afternoon to those of you in Europe and the Middle East. And good evening to everyone joining us from Asia. I'm Elliot Gotkin, coming to you live from Tel Aviv. I've been a journalist most of my professional life, reporting for CNN, the BBC and Bloomberg Television, covering business, finance, technology and politics. And it's a real pleasure for me to be your host today, as together we explore the new reality for B2B tech. And of course, we're thrilled that you have been able to join us. Has it really been 12 months since our last event in Dublin, when we actually did this in person? Yes, real people, no screens in between us, and you could even shake people's hands and see them. It seems like a long time ago, and it's a real shame that we can't all be in the same place this time round. But on the plus side, of course, we can bring even more people together from all over the world for what promises to be a most excellent event. Now, as well as being a health crisis, COVID has also thrown up enormous challenges for many businesses. For others, like a lot of B2B tech companies, it's been a boon, as home continues to be the centre of our lives for work, learning and entertainment. Now, over the next hour, we're going to be discussing three core issues that business tech executives and managers are dealing with today, namely, how to stay profitable during uncertain times, how to deal with excessive growth, and the challenges for management in the new organisational structure where many employees are not physically in the office. And just so you know who else is at the event, you are in good company. You are joined by representatives from more than 40 top tech companies, it's a mouthful, in EMEA, including Wix, Salesforce, GoDaddy, Cisco, Prezi, Reich, Avast, Semrush, and many more. Welcome, one and all. And here's what's in store for us today. First, we are going to hear from Reich, the work management platform based in California. We're going to be talking with their founder and CEO, Andrew Filev, as well as their senior marketing director, Kashna Kostin, to hear how Reich took a targeted approach to marketing to stay profitable during these uncertain times. Then we're going to be hearing from Dana Maor, senior partner, managing partner and head of the global talent practice at McKinsey. She will be joining us and sharing her insights on reimagining the post-pandemic organisation. She's a great leader and a great speaker in the field, and we are thrilled that she's able to join us in person. And finally, we're going to be having a panel discussion on the challenges of excessive growth and managing the unpredictable. We're going to have the chance to hear from Shachar Eisenberg, who is CMO of Artlist, as well as Avi Eyal from Entree Capital. And throughout the discussion, we'll be taking your questions, so do please send them in and keep them coming. And before we start, we're going to have a chat about what's changed at B2B tech companies and future trends. And who better to discuss than Lior Cooper, who is a B2B tech analytical consultant at Google. Lior, over to you.
Thanks, Elliot, and hello, everybody. My name is Lior Cooper. I'm an analytical consultant in Google's Israeli B2B team. In my daily job, I work with Israel's largest advertisers to help them scale their activity within Google and achieve their business goals. In the next few minutes, I'll share with you the main trends we've seen in the B2B industry and the best way to approach them. The first thing I want to share with you is the overall demand for B2B products in the past year. We can see here that demand growth peaked tremendously at the outset of COVID-19 and has remained high until now. This demand peak was not universal. We know that a lot of businesses and industries suffered from a decrease in demand and additional challenges that prevented them from keeping their businesses running as usual. Because of this, we found ourselves asking, where is this change coming from? So, what we see on this graph is that while there is a massive first peak, the high volume demand in fact lingered and has stayed high until now. But what we wanted to understand is what happened and why. What became obvious was that the trends we were spotting were in fact mirroring our personal experience of life under a pandemic. The home was suddenly pushed up front and center and became the place where all aspects of our life were being played out. So, when working from home started, businesses were seeking short-term solutions. The most standout examples were firstly, teleconferencing, that increased up by 380% year over year. Secondly, collaboration software that increased by more than 100%. And lastly, e-commerce platforms, up by 50%. As the year progressed, it became increasingly apparent that this is the new normal, and the high volume of demand was driven mostly by long-term solutions. Key examples are sales and marketing software, which increased by 32%, and customer service and support, which increased by 26%. So now we have established that there's higher demand. What exactly has changed in the way buyers make their decision? Well, we found two major changes that might also help your business gain a leading edge. The first was that a phenomenal 87% of B2B buyers are now showing a preference towards self-serve options when they buy. Secondly, another notable change is that buyers now use almost 7 decision-making sources, such as online reviews and webinars, before actually going ahead and sealing the deal. In a nutshell, the overwhelming evidence is that people don't want to talk to a salesperson anymore, because they are building their decision based on information that's readily available and easy to find at the click of a button. Lastly, I want to highlight a trend that we've seen emerging over the years. Data privacy and security are as relevant today as ever and remain a critical aspect of the buyer decision-making process. In conclusion, At the beginning of the pandemic, when a clear shift in buyer behavior was noted, there was no way of knowing where these shifts were going. But now, for the time being anyway, these trends are predicted to continue until a new hybrid model of working between home and office becomes clearer, which you'll hear more about from Dana Maor a little later. Until then, thanks for joining me today at Think Tech B2B. Back to you, Elliot.
Thank you, Lior, for those fascinating insights. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to be speaking with Reich founder and CEO Andrew Filev. But first, let's hear from the company's Senior Marketing Director, Kash Nakostin.
Thank you, Elliot, for the great introduction. And thank you, Google Think Tech B2B, for inviting us to come back for the second year to share our experiences and the challenges that we dealt with during this uncertain time at the COVID time. Reich is the most versatile work management platform, and we believe our goal in the company at Reich is to empower you to do the best work of your life. We are across 8 different countries in 8 different offices with over 1,000 employees and 2 million users on our platform. We provide services to any department, any team, at any sizes, at any company. So you could be a 1 user to a 10,000 user company, marketing department, all the way to the finance or IT. We provide you the resources and the platform that you need to do the best work of your life. But let's get to the point that what we are here for, how COVID impacted us, and how we were able to move on and be the work that we could do during the COVID, and what was the challenges that we faced, and what was the success stories that we came up with. As all know, when the lockdown that we had to reduce our team due to the budget cuts and different scenarios and uncertain times that we were facing. So that was the first challenge. I'm sure you all have done it before, and you all have to went through it at different level and different drastically. The second thing we all had to do, we had to transition our team fully to remote. So that is easier for us than it probably was for most companies. But when you have 1,200 different employees in different time zones, different countries that they want to working home, there comes its own challenges. But we were able to do it. The team has been using Reich for a long time, so it was an easier transition than probably was for most people in other companies. But that also has its own challenges that we had to face. The second thing that the company, what we decided to do is we wanted to contribute to the challenges that everybody has. We want to be able to help any way we can on our existing clients, but also on our potential clients, that we can give them a little bit of comfort during these uncertain times. So what we did is we decided for the first time ever to allow the users to take advantage of the 6 months pro trial of our product, compared to previously we were providing 14 days trial. And a couple of reasons for that is we want to allow people to have one less worry that, hey, how am I going to be able to manage my team's work? How am I going to be tracking the tasks that I've already been running? How will I be able to run at the same efficiency that I was running in the office, or potentially even be better, because everybody's in their comfort of home in that scenario. So we also believe that our product is very superior in the market, and we wanted to allow our product to do their own work. So what we call it, sell our own product by selling the product, and allowing the user to use the product, see the value in the product, take advantage of it, see the support that we provide to our customers to be successful. So that's one of the reasons that we also did that 6 months pro trial. But so these are all the challenges we had. As I mentioned, we had some good success during this impact COVID that had on us for our business. So in result of that transition to the 14 days to the 6 months trial that we did to be able to help, that also has benefit on the business. There's no question about that. We saw a staggering 18% increase on the number of the trials that we had, which is a company at our scale in 140 different countries in 22 different languages, I think is a sizable increase. We also saw a staggering 10% increase in the conversion rate, which is in the SaaS world, in our world, at our scales, that's double digit, is very significant. So definitely has its own benefit. On a business side, that's what we have. But how did we do it? Like, we have a 6 months pro trial, everybody has an idea, but how did we execute on that 6 month trial? How do we go to the market to be able to get this staggering result of 18% increase in the number of a trial, 10% increase in the conversion rate? So what we did first, we double down on the channels that we knew best, the channels that we continue losing, that has been core channels for our success that we had in the previous year, this year, and we'll continue to be using that. So we want to scale those and be efficient because we know what we're going to get back in return. Second thing is we brought in new channels into the mix because we are now in the offline. We no longer offline exists. We are in the online and digital world. We had to have a certain amount of activities done to be able to hit our goals. So what we did, we pivoted to the existing channels. We focused more on videos and a programmatic and display to be able to show and a visualization, but also be able to target people on different areas and different channels they have. Let's talk about the video. I'll talk about how important it was for us, how we focused as a new channel. So one primary focus for us was YouTube. We increased our spend by 45x. So that's a very significant increase, and we'll continue increasing that in 2021. And the surprising for us is that on the first round of try that we started spending a significant amount of money, which in that world, when you increase money, the efficiency always becomes a challenge. We were able to get an ROI positive, which was very encouraging, but also allows us to be on the right path for the new channel and also another way for us to build. So what we did is we wanted to focus more video. We built an internal team with the activities and motion designers, and the production companies from outside to be able to produce videos, high quality videos, short videos, long videos, educational videos, competitors videos on a regular basis, be able to push that out to the content, get the actual feedback from the user's experience, and use that to optimize ours to be able to get that ROI positive. I think that was one of the key focus for us, that we focus on the asset than the targeting, compared to most people start with the targeting and work with the asset. Because in the visual words, people make decisions with their eyes. As much as we like to admit that education is important, but people first, they grab their attention with visual, which is assets and the videos and creative. Then you have the copy, then landing page that helps you to sell the process and get them to convert. So that's why we want to make sure that our videos has a seamless experience from the beginning to the end. Now, I talked about the video. I feel like I have to give you guys a glimpse of the video that we have been working on for a long time with our production companies. And the next video that I'm going to share with you guys is the last exciting video that we did for our Reich for Marketing team, and which will give you a glimpse of what we mean by the level of the quality video, how we focus on the messaging, how we focus on our product, and how we allow the product be the vocal voice of the content rather than our marketing messaging.
Ever since we got Reich, managing my team and their projects is a lot less dramatic. For example, now we have all the information we need at a glance. We don't get the old thrill of searching for hours or asking coworkers for updates 5 times a day.
Do you have the creative brief?
Go fish! Do you have the project's deadline? Go fish.
Collaboration is so simple that meetings aren't as exciting as they used to be.
Kanban!
No, spreadsheet.
Spreadsheets are no way to manage a project.
Well, I can't work with just sticky notes.
With everyone on the same page, there's no need to battle for convenient slots on everyone's agenda. The 14th.
Hit CEO webinar. The 16th?
Hit funding press release. The 20th.
Seriously? That's a Saturday. No!
With Reich, working is just so seamless. I had never had an actual restful night's sleep. And now, like a baby. I'm warning you, with Reich, things will never be the same again. If that's what you want, click on the blue button and start your free trial today.
Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Just give you a glimpse of the effort that we put in during the COVID, working remote, working with the international team to get this video to the finish. So that truly gives the credit to the team, as we are believer of Intel. But with all these activities, we know there's going to be impact in the user behavior. I'm sure you have seen it in your own companies, your own field, your own verticals, that user behavior drastically change when the COVID hit, with all these scenarios happening. So what we see at Reich in our user behavior? What kind of change, what kind of impact do we see on the user behavior? Actually, it kind of was positive, to be honest. I mean, the first thing that we saw is that existing customers that have been using the product for a long time, they reached out back to us. They wanted to increase the lives and user base. They were asking for more resources to be able to get more team on board in a quickly matter of time, to be able to, and most of them that were warning us, hey, we should have done this long time ago, but now we have to do it in matter of days rather than we had previously matter of months to do it. So that definitely was that. We also had a lot of people increasing for the discount on the lower product due to the COVID uncertainty. We cut budget, we talked to our vendors, so it was very expectable. But the part that was more surprising to us, that existing customer wanted a more license than even wanted a discount compared to a prospect coming into the product that we're not familiar with, that they were asking for a discount for it. So which was a very key initiative for us. That shows the product actually has value, because existing customers that they use it on a daily basis didn't see the value. They don't see it necessary for them as nice to have, is essential for the work, compared to the new people that come into our market looking at our product, is still trying to identify, is this experiment, is this expense, or is this investment for them? So that's why we see that feedback. But also we saw within the big companies, 10,000 plus employees, that now they have to, digital transformation has to accelerate in a short amount of time. Previously, they were planning for years. Now they have months that they need to get 10,000 employees to work remote, be efficient, continue hitting the goals, and be able to adapt. So that was definitely another user behavior and a challenge that we saw all the big companies are facing, that we wanted to contribute that. And we definitely built for that, because Rike is built for enterprises. We proud ourselves to be able to provide an end-to-end solution and customization to enterprise customers at all time. But what's our plan is for 2021? I mean, everything I went over, we started with some little bit of background on the COVID, but it's been a positive year for us overall, or what was going to happen for us in 2021. Definitely, we're going to grow quickly. There's no reduce in the team in 2021, definitely for sure. So we're going to be expanding our team, continue hiring, going to focus on our existing channels that we already know performs well. We want to expand on our digital advertising in the YouTube and the programmatic, because we've seen a good result, and we are a believer in the performance. So when performance is this, we would like to double down and triple down, as you guys can see, and also continue creating an asset, more focused on the customers, more focused on the customer's pain, on how they can use the product better compared to try to sell them on the product eventually. Because we believe in product as strong, as I have said it multiple times. So we let our product speaks for itself. Right? We got the prover from a user behavior. We saw the improvement on our product and the stickiness on that. So I think that definitely there's opportunity for us there. And we want to be more efficient. I mean, COVID is still not over. There's opportunity for COVID to come back and be more restriction rule and more challenge down the line. So we definitely trying to grow. So keep ourselves on the efficiency side, that just in case if we need to pivot, we know we can do it, but can we do it quickly and be continuing efficiency, or if we can grow at the same rate without have to worry about COVID, because we have our efficiency parallel working at the same time. So this is our story, as I said in there, but we're going to definitely be growing in 2021, but focus on efficiency, but also growing at the same time to be able to cover all bases. I would like to mention that Rike was named Deloitte Technology's fastest 500 list for the 6th year in a row. We're very proud to be included in that list and be growth on that. Thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thank you, Cash, and he'll be back very shortly to answer your questions. So if you want to ask him something, please do so via the chat. Now, for more on Rike and how it's navigated its way through the pandemic, I'm delighted to be joined by the company's founder and CEO, Andrew Filev. Andrew, great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Hi, hello, Anna. Thank you for having me here.
Great. Well, I mean, just very curious to know, when the pandemic first started, obviously we didn't know then it was a pandemic, when reports of this coronavirus started popping up, obviously first in China and then spreading around the world. What were your thoughts? You know, you saw the lockdowns happening. Did you think, wow, this is going to mean everyone's going to work from home and it's going to turbocharge growth? Did you think, oh, hang on a minute, this could be bad because the economy is going to go into free fall and maybe our customers are going to lose their jobs and that's going to impact our revenue? So curious to know what your thoughts were at the time and if you had an inkling that this was actually going to be a positive for your company.
So let me start with a personal story and then go into a little bit of economical one. So I was watching the cases as they developed through the world, and we have offices in multiple countries, so a kind of a little bit bigger global perspective. And one thought that was really eating me is that it's really hard to stop it, right? Even in the early days, looking at the nature of the beast, it looked like in order to stop it, we basically need a lockdown, and no politician will do a lockdown unless something bad happens. And when that bad happens, it's kind of already a little bit too late, right? So that was their unfortunate thought. And I promised you a personal story. So I was kind of like thinking about it in abstract, almost as if you're reading a book. It's like happening to somebody else. And then one sunny weekend, my kid was trying out for a roller hockey tournament that was supposed to happen in August. It's kind of a national event, big deal. He got into the team in the morning, and then later that afternoon, I emailed the coach and said, with all due respect, let me withdraw the kid because I believe there is no chance that the tournament is actually going to happen, right? And kind of they laughed at me. Hockey guys are pretty tough ones, like what virus, we don't care. But that's kind of when it switched for me. And next Monday, right after that, I came to work. I called our event team and I told them, listen, you're going to hate me, and then later you're going to love me. We have in our company this big annual customer show called Right Collaborate. And it's a big event for us. We're really proud. We get to meet all of our customers, talk about the vision for the product, the category, share great stories, kind of re-energize everybody, our sales, customers. So incredibly important event. And I came to the team and I said, we're pulling back on the physical one while it's not too late, and we're going to change it to digital, and we're going to make it even better. And of course, they hated me, but I told them, listen, like this is how it's going to play out. And once it's play out, it's going to be very hard to back off financial commitments, and we'll basically lose all the money. It's much easier to negotiate now. And then I think a week or 2 weeks later, we closed our offices in California, and their executive consensus was, we'll have to do it sooner or later. So why don't we do it a little bit sooner? Kind of going to be safer for employees, and will give us a little bit more time to kind of adapt to this. So long story short, I kind of thought a lot about it, but when it was time to act, we act pretty quick and try to figure out, figure out kind of a very logical path with trying to move away from emotions and just say, okay, what is best for our employees? What is best for our customers? So that's the personal part. Economically, I always felt that it's going to be a two-edged sword for us as a company, that overall impact on the economy will be terrible and will have its cost. And of course, when kind of our tide goes down, every ship goes down, right? But at the same time, for their category, wherein I always thought that it's going to be transformational, as people will have to adapt work management platforms, communication technologies, security software to make sure this remote work environment works for them. And so from that perspective, there's a huge upswing. And I told the team, like, we're going to process it as it is, right? There's going to be negative impact on the business and the market, and there's going to be positive impact on the category. And so let's be careful and make sure that we kind of account for both as we go forward into the year.
Right. So you obviously took precautions to make sure that your employees were all safe, and of course your son, and also preparing yourself for the way that customers were going to start interacting with you, or whether whether it was trying to attract new customers or to kind of maintain the relationship with existing ones. What changes did you actually see with the behaviour in your segment of the B2B tech market? What did it mean for the companies that they were working for, the way they were interacting with you? Were you seeing, huge spike in the amount of time that they were spending using your software? Did you find that companies were, perhaps reluctant to be spending money on something when they were having to make cutbacks? What was it that you were noticing?
It was very polar, right? There are some companies that were hit very hard in this environment, and so they absolutely went into survival mode. And my heart goes to them, and I've got some friends in that group. And so obviously industries that have a lot to do with physical gathering or physical presence the companies that have very little digital footprint, they were hit the hardest. And so we have customers like that, and for them, it's kind of we were in this support mode, right? Like, what can we do to help you get through that? And then on the other side, there were companies that operated as is, and for them, it was very important to do two things. One, transition their workforce to this remote work environment where all the workflows are digital. And the second was to transition a lot of their offerings for their end customers into this digital realm, be it e-commerce or new services or launching new products. So kind of the combination of the two created a lot of market momentum. And we were working really hard to make sure that our customers could get kind of the most support from us, whether they're in this camp that's being heard by the market, or this camp where which is kind of neutral but needs to still adapt to this new environment and change the way they work.
But of course, I mean, being a CEO of a tech company is stressful enough, but here you're working in an environment and you're almost blind because, yes, you can see the virus is spreading, but you don't know if the state of California is going to impose a lockdown, for example. You don't know if your office in another country is going to be locked down, if the people are going to be allowed to work, to come into the office or to work from home. So I'm just wondering how, as the CEO of this company, you make decisions. I mean, were you able to kind of see through the kind of changes that were happening every other month in terms of the changes in policies that were being made by governments and, of course, by central banks, whether it's furlough schemes or what have you? Were you able to kind of see through those and just kind of focus on what you thought was going to be the overriding picture and make decisions that were going to be beneficial to obviously both your customers and to Reich as a company?
And we did a couple of things that were really helpful, kind of looking at the retrospect. First of all, we were very open with our employees about what we think about this whole situation and what this means for the company. And again, kind of walking through very similar things that I've just described. We reminded everybody about our mission, what we're here for, and how does that mission play in this new environment. And we also came back with kind of a view of immediate priorities. As a company, we operate on several cadences. We have annual cadences as any large organization, but we also have quarterly cadences. And so it was very important to come directly and say, okay, here's our new set of priorities for the quarter, and we're going to execute on that. So that leadership and transparency were very important. And then the other thing we did is we reinforced through the whole company management best practices. I personally believe that management in remote environment is not a rocket science. It's not very different from managing in a non-remote environment. It's just that remote environment puts everything to pressure test. That basically every single crack is going to turn into something big, right? So in terms of our management playbook, we already were heavy users of Agile within our product organization for years, and since the beginning, actually. And so we had islands of adoption of that across the company, and I felt it was really important that we adopt Agile best practices within our business operations team, which needed to quickly, on the switch, redo the whole plan and be able to adopt, as you say, kind of every week, every month, things were very different. And so we needed to adopt that Agile mindset and some Agile best practices in business operations, in marketing. So we went through training and retrained the organization on that. And then the other thing we reinforced was OKRs, objective key results, quarterly planning that we run on our platform. And so we retrained kind of middle management on that to make sure that the whole organization moves in sync. Again, as a big company, one of the challenges you have is not just the right strategy, but is that you want to make sure that where the head goes, the body and arms and legs, they're all going the same direction. And so it was really important that we cascade it all well through organization. And then we have real-time visibility into that work that's happening, like are people executing on those new priorities that we just set in front of them? Are there any roadblocks? And how can we very quickly identify, sync, and kind of resolve all those things?
Andrew, we're pretty much out of time, but I just wonder if you can just sum up in one sentence what your main takeaway is from what you've been living through in 2020, just perhaps in one sentence if you could.
Stay calm, stay open-minded, support your friends and customers and employees who need that support, and be flexible and adaptable to see beyond their sort of dark side and see the light, and kind of be able to take the opportunity and use it to your advantage.
Great. Well, wonderful note to end on. Andrew Filev, CEO and founder of Rike. It's obviously been a challenging year, and we really appreciate your taking the time to speak to us here for this event, and hope you have a happy and somewhat less eventful 2021.
Cheers to that.
All right, you take care, Andrew. Thank you. OK, plenty of food for thought there, and it's prompted a number of questions from all of you. So just as well, I've now got Rike's Senior Marketing Director, Kash Nakostin, with me to answer them. So, Kash, great to see you up there on the big screen. Question now from Maxim Rozliakov. Hope I got that right, from SEMrush. How exactly do you measure the success of your videos?
Yeah, thank you, Elliot, for the introduction, and good to see you. So for measure for our successful video, we look at it in different ways. We look at the impact that we'll have on the direct traffic. We look at the impact that we'll have on the branded campaigns, and we also look at our market penetration that we do in the markets that we use video compared to use videos before. And we also look at the impact that it has on our conversion rate on the site and where the user's behavior comes in. And based on the propensity models that we have built in there, when the trial comes in within the first hour, we identify where they came from, what the value of that is, and that's how we determine the ROI for our channels in the real-time matters.
OK, next question, Kash, from Olga Denisova. She'd like to know how you manage production of multiple videos and how you handle localization.
Yes. So production, we use Rike. We do everything in Rike. So if it's not in Rike, you're not doing it. And if you're not doing it, you're not getting credit for it. So one of the secret that we had, we were able to get the production company on the Rike, train them during the pandemic, allow them to use the product. And on the localization, we have a partnership with a bunch of agencies before that we've been using for years. They also use the Rike. So it allows us to, yes, they're different companies, but we all entangled to the one platform, one project, one task. So everybody can communicate. They can see where the holdup is, where the translation is stuck, what languages we're doing, and what the timing is. And I think that was the biggest key for us, but also talent. I mean, I can't take it away from the team. Team worked extremely hard during this certain time. So that's definitely has a little bit of credit to the team as well.
OK. Well, look, Kash Nakostin, I'm sorry, but that's all we've got time for right now. Senior Marketing Director at Rike. Really appreciate your taking the time to speak to us and answer some of our viewers' questions. So thank you and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
OK, wonderful. Now, before we move on, some of you have asked if we could share Lior Cooper's slides, and I'm happy to say that the answer is yes. So we will send them over in the coming days. This is Lior Cooper, the analyst from Google, who was talking about marketing and business performance, which was also something we were talking about hearing from Andrew and Kash there as well. So let's now turn to another pressing issue that so many companies are facing today, major organizational changes. And while we were speaking with Kash, Dana Mayor, managing partner at McKinsey and leader of their global talent practice, has joined me here in the flesh. Great to see you and to have a guest in person. Thank you. I'm still getting excited every time we have someone in person here, so it's been a while. So thanks for coming in. I mean, first question is, you know, so many people are watching this while working from home, or at least while they should be working from home, or they have at some point been working from home during the course of the past year. Is that going to be permanent? Are people going to be working this way from now on until, you know, I don't know, the next kind of seismic shift? Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a very good question that inevitably we've been looking at from the moment we found ourselves in this greatest pilot of all times. We took pulse immediately as the pandemic started to understand how people are feeling as they're working remotely. And we were very surprised to learn that 84% of employees that we've surveyed actually were very excited to work from home. 90% of them said that they would love to continue to work from home later on. And some of them said that they're actually, more than 90% of them said that they're happy to continue to do that to the extent of actually giving up some of their benefits. So that was very interesting. And then we thought, okay, maybe that was the honeymoon period. Everybody was very excited. People were thrilled to not have to travel to work, not have to get dressed to work, find some time to do other things. And so in October, when we found ourselves in this situation for over 6 months, we took the pulse again. And what was very surprising is that we've learned that the numbers are actually still the same. You do have
People aren't
folks
getting tired of it.
not tired of it, still excited to work remotely, still excited to keep some of this going forward, and still willing to give up some of their benefits to do that. Now, obviously, the answer is nuanced. It is not the same answer for everyone. We are seeing very big differences across geographies. The developed economies are far more prepared to continue to work remotely, whereas some of the developing economies are not there. They do not have that infrastructure. And in fact, we are seeing companies, tech companies, that are saying that some of their employees have better conditions in the workplace than they do at home, and therefore they do want to come back to work. We're also seeing companies like even Netflix that are saying as soon as everything opens up, everybody comes back to the office. But the reality is that as we analyze the activities that different people do, we see that particularly in financial services, in high tech, you can do a lot of it from home, and there's a very, very high likelihood that we will not go all the way back, and we will be in a world where at least 2 days, if not 3, we work remotely.
I guess it would also depend, of course, if the schools are operating, for example, because people with children, as you may have experienced personally, I know I certainly experienced it, you can't really get that much work done at home when you're trying to help homeschool your kids.
So that is actually one of the important things, which we're all assuming that everybody has the infrastructure, everybody has the real estate to find that space to work quietly at home, and that everybody can do that. And so when companies now think through what it is that their operating model would look like post-pandemic, they are doing a very granular analysis to understand what roles can be done remotely, who of their people actually has the infrastructure, what conditions they have at home. And one of the interesting things that we're seeing is a new model of pop-up offices where you have more offices in neighborhoods rather than have to travel all the way into the center of London or New York or any other urban area. So you are not at home, but you're also not in the office as we know it.
I know some companies, I remember speaking with the CEO of Hippo out there in California, and they actually created a school for their employees so that they would, be able to go to work even when their children aren't able to go to school. But of course, the ramifications of the new normal, let's call it, are impacting everything, from not just the companies themselves, but city centres, real estate companies who have invested billions in offices that may never now be occupied, small businesses that are suffering in city centres because no one's coming into work. What are we going to see happening there in the future? Are city centres going to be hollowed out? Are these office blocks going to be turned into apartments? What's your take?
So if I refer back to some of the latest analysis that we've done, trying to understand exactly which industries, which geographies would see a huge amount of their employees working remotely, we're seeing that the answer, again, is not one answer. The reality is that city centers where you have industries that are not only finance and tech will continue to see many of their employees come back to the city, and even those that are particularly dominated by finance, tech, data services, we'll also see that they are coming back some of the time, so most of the models will be hybrid. We do expect that you will need and use less office space, but you will not just completely hollow them out, right? As you've mentioned, offices out. And we are still surveying some of the data to understand exactly how that's going to work. Public transportation, how is that going to operate? Right? Are we going to see people squeezing together in a train or a bus to get to work? Not clear. Hopefully, when we see that the vaccine is out there and we're all healthy and safe again, some of that will happen, but it will probably take a while.
Right, yes. I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to being stuffed into packed tube trains in London and other cities around the world. Of course, another thing which may be, if you like, a victim of the pandemic is office culture. You can't get the same camaraderie, the same interactions that you do via Google Meet or any other video conferencing apps that you would in person. So how can companies kind of help ensure that their culture remains intact and I suppose at the same time ensure that new recruits are imbued with the same sense of culture, even though they may never have met their colleagues or even stepped foot in the office?
It is a very, very difficult question. And I have been working with some people who join the organizations that they're part of during the pandemic. And obviously they had a very, very different onboarding experience and are having a much harder time connecting with and networking with their peers and getting to know their organization. The real issue is that you have to be very, very deliberate as it pertains to culture in this world. When somebody comes into an organization, just walking around the halls, going and having coffee, grabbing lunch with someone, you get what the culture of the organization is about. And this is not an option right now, and likely not going to be an option in the next year. And if we believe that the hybrid model is the one that is going to persist going forward, that will also be hard. If I'm looking at the end state, when you think of the hybrid models, some of those things will happen when you're physically in the office. So onboarding will be something that you still do physically. Spending time with others, brainstorming, problem solving, social activities, all that will be in person. Right now, that is not possible. And so what we're telling managers is that they have to be extremely deliberate in how they manage people. They have to be very clear on why is it that we're here? What is it that this organization is set out to do? What are those things that we want to stand for? And make sure that they create those events. And even though it sounds very technical, call your employees to check in on them. Schedule Zoom drinks just to catch up. Make sure that as you start and finish a meeting, you do allow for the natural catch-up that you would have done if you would have walked into the meeting together or left the meeting together. And so many of our clients are actually spending very, very significant time defining the culture very clearly, understanding what that implies in terms of leadership behaviors, and translating that to very, very specific actions that they want their leaders to take.
But is it inevitable that, first of all, that mistakes are going to be made in recruitment when you're recruiting virtually? And second of all, that these ideas, these brainstorming that you referenced, that's going to, in the future, still probably be taking place in the office. Are we going to see almost like if you look at like a chart of ideas and kind of mistakes, we're going to see like a spike in mistakes in terms of recruitment and at the same time, perhaps like a dip in the kind of, fresh ideas for businesses? So
maybe we start with recruiting, because the interesting thing with recruiting is that we're also seeing a trend. And by the way, remote working as well, that's not something new. Digitization, automation, that's not something new. These are things that have just accelerated significantly because of where we are right now. When it pertains to recruiting, there were already a lot of very interesting ways of recruiting that we've seen companies deploy. Games, computer games, I would have probably failed any recruiting process that would have been anchored in computer games. But we're seeing that today, and we're trying those at McKinsey as well. You do have some of that. We're seeing social dynamic type screening processes that are happening on Zoom. And so there's a lot that you actually can do remotely. Will there be mistakes? Obviously, we're all learning, and many organizations that didn't feel that they're prepared for it are finding themselves having to do it. But I do think that there'll be fewer mistakes than some might be concerned that there would be.
And in terms of productivity, I suppose one of the pros for companies and maybe cons for employees is that they're pretty much always working. You're never the split between work-life balance just isn't there anymore, because you're basically always not working and always working at the same time. So is this a positive for companies because they can squeeze more of that out of their employees, or is it a negative because the long time people risk Zoom fatigue or burning out?
So the interesting thing is that at the beginning and even now, we have seen that on average productivity has gone up. Customer satisfaction has gone up. This is on average. Obviously, there are those customers that are less satisfied. There are those roles where you see productivity going down. But on average, the remote working model has actually proved itself. The issue is really how do you make sure that people can sustain this over time? And there are some points of data that suggest that some people are working even as many as 3 hours longer than they would have worked otherwise. And this is where thinking of well-being of your employees and connecting with them is becoming very, very important. Creating the routine, making sure that you're not working 24/7, allowing employees to have a Zoom free day or Google Meet free day, not be on video all the time. All those little things are critical. And one of the capabilities that we know managers and employees need more than ever are those capabilities around energy management, focusing on what's important, making sure that you notice people and not abuse your employees because they're inevitably always available to you. When managed well, we are seeing an increase in productivity. When not, there's a question as to how long that steely grit that we've seen at the beginning, the natural resources that we have to draw on when we're in a situation of crisis are going to hold on.
And is this something that needs to come from the organisations themselves? Needs to be top down, that they say, right, no one is to contact, you know, their underlings after this hour. There has to be a cut-off, or the employees just basically need to kind of say, that's it, I'm not here.
So obviously, we all, as managers, say, yes, our employees need to take responsibility and just do that, but this is very, very difficult. We know that these things only work when there's real commitment from the management team, there's visible role modeling from managers at different levels, and then there's a commitment of the employees to take them up on it. We tried it many times. We tried to have a predictable night out where people leave at a reasonable hour. We try to sometimes not have weekend email. It's not easy, but it's never going to work if the most senior people are there working, emailing, and expecting their employees to be there and perform.
And I suppose now, you know, where we are, we're coming towards the end of the year. There are still concerns that, you know, many economies are going to have a really tough time, certainly over the coming 12 months, as they try and bounce back. One problem that many economies have had, I mean, I'm British, as you can probably tell. The UK, for example, traditionally was known to be not particularly productive in terms of productivity relative to other countries. Is the situation we're now in, where there's been so much more digitisation across the board, and also, yes, people working more perhaps than they should, is that actually going to help these economies emerge faster from the recessions that they're probably now in?
So I'm not big on macroeconomy. I can't give you the big economical answer, but what we have seen when we looked at the future of work and what professions are going to be digitized and automized, and what it means for the workforce, we are seeing a couple of things. First, no doubt that 40 to 50% of what we do can be digitized and automated, and therefore one might ask themselves, okay, does that mean that we don't need 50% of us? Fortunately, that's not the case, because what happens is that the activities that we do are automated and digitized, but not full roles. There may be 10% of roles that are going to be completely obviated and not needed. Most of us will just need to learn how to do our job differently. And so will it help? Yes, if you know how to upskill, reskill, reallocate your employees. If you don't, then you're going to find yourself in a situation where you do have serious gaps in terms of talent, and some people will not be able to make themselves productive. This is not a problem that you can hire and fire yourself out of. You have to think about how you truly upskill and reskill the workforce of the future.
Right, really fascinating insights there, Dana. Now, we're hopefully going to get some questions from our audience who's been watching all this time via Google Meet. If you've not sent them in yet, then keep them. You can send them in now or keep them coming. We've got a question from Maxim. I'm not sure if we're going to see him up on the big screen or not, but a question from Maxim. We're not going to see him on the big screen. But he would like to know if you expect some long-term negative effects of working from home, which may not be particularly obvious right now, but maybe too. Oh, here he is, the man himself. Hi, Maxim. We can't actually hear him, but we can see him.
Terrific.
Maybe Maxim's best seen and not heard, I don't know, but that's his question. So
I think there are two areas that we're most concerned about right now. One is obviously the skills and capabilities of employees to be able to continue to handle the situation, but also to be relevant for the future. And this is where the upskilling and reskilling comes in. We know that some skills and capabilities that are typically considered soft are going to be critical. So how do you manage your energy? How do you develop other people? How do you make sure that you motivate people? How do you deal with uncertainty? Those are going to be skills that are going to be critical. And without those, we're likely going to see people's motivation and health, mental health deteriorating. So that is one. The second thing is the kinds of professions that will be required. We are actually seeing an increase in health practitioners, physical safety practitioners, those that will need to make sure that as we finally go back to the office with everyone, we feel safe. High demand in anything that pertains to Internet of Things, AI, etc. And of course, anything that has to do with technologies that allow us to work in this way. Those are the good effects. Obviously, the flip side of that means that there are other professions that are going to be less relevant or will absolutely require physical co-location, and those are the ones that might suffer the most.
OK. Dana, I'm afraid we've run out of time. I know we had more questions, so we are going to see if we can perhaps get some of those questions to you and then answer. Dana didn't necessarily know that I was going to offer that service, but we'll do our very best nonetheless. So Dana Mayor, Managing Partner at McKinsey Israel, and also global leader of the firm's talent practice. Really appreciate your taking the time to come in person, and look forward to seeing you again in person very soon. Thank you. Now, let's move on to our panel discussion on the challenges of excessive growth and managing the unpredictable. Joining us today is Shachar Eisenberg, CMO of Israel-based Artlist. The company builds and maintains a catalogue of creative digital assets like stock music and sound effects that producers can use in videos, games and music without worrying about copyright or other legal issues. Also joining us is Avi Eyal, co-founder and managing partner at Entree Capital. It's a VC with offices in London, New York and Tel Aviv that's invested in a wide range of companies, including Monday.com, Riskified and House Party, which was bought by Fortnite creator Epic Games just last year. Great to have you with us here live in the studio, real people to interact with. I'm so excited.
Lovely to be here, and thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for coming today. And of course, it's been a bit of a, let's call it an interesting year. So a nice simple one to kick off with for both of you. How was 2020 for your company, in your case, Shachar, and for your companies in your portfolio, Avi?
Thank you. So the year started off very well, as everyone knows, and with Corona arriving, it had a number of effects on the world at large, unprecedented times. We've been extremely lucky in a portfolio of over 80 companies. We really have seen most of the companies do extremely well, raise follow-on funding, exceed every metric. Companies like Rapid, Monday, etc., doing very well. Kazoo in London becoming, in a lockdown period, one of the biggest second-hand car sale companies in the UK. And we have seen very few businesses really negatively affected. In case in point, we've had one business go out of business, two companies in dire straits. But for the rest of the portfolio, it's been business as usual or scaling up to meet the demand.
For a VC, I guess there's a pretty good proportions to have success versus troubled. And you, as a venture capital firm, you've been quite happy, despite the uncertainties, to open your wallet and put money in, even though you don't really know what's going to be happening in the next year or two?
Yes, so I think that we look at things in a long term. So we have substantial reserves, and we've used those reserves when required. But we've been extremely fortunate in that most of the companies that raised subsequent rounds of funding have raised this funding from external VCs. The market is extremely liquid. I think that between March and June, it was a lot of questions, but certainly after June, there's been an unprecedented amount of money flowing into startups, with the cycle of innovation being squeezed, the 10-year cycle, into the next 2 or 3 years.
And Shachar, I guess you kind of would have, were you one of his portfolio companies, which you're not? If you had been, you would have been on the successful side, because you've also seen pretty growing demand and actually a boost to your business during the pandemic.
Yeah, actually it was a very exciting year for us. We were used to, in the past 4 years, to have a 100% growth year over year. And actually we had we raised money just before the year started. And you know, after you raise money, you want to prove your abilities and the growth that you're expected to show. So it was an amazing year for us. We saw a dramatic increase in demand, especially for a stock footage website. So yeah, it was a great year for us.
And just as the pandemic struck, you're also about to launch a new product. You must have been at least a bit nervous, because obviously in hindsight we can see fully digitized businesses, many of them got a big boost. But of course at the time you might have been thinking, oh my goodness, you know, who's going to pay for stuff when no one's got a job or any money?
Yeah, correct. Just before the COVID started, we were about to launch a new product, our sound effects catalog. And we had to brainstorm what we're doing now with the situation and the uncertainty that at the time we felt. But Actually, the final results were amazing, and we actually doubled the marketing spend on this specific platform, and we saw a great success.
Okay, so of course it's hardly been business as usual. Be great to get a sense of how you, Shachar, and you, Avi, with your portfolio companies, how they've adapted their strategies to kind of better fit the needs of their customers. Because I guess if people are working more from home and doing more things digitally, then certainly the digitized businesses may be able to do things that perhaps in the past they were scared of doing. And again, for you, Shachar, perhaps you can see more opportunities because people are more in need of your services. Shachar, why don't you kick off with this one?
Yeah, so more people tend to spend more time and money on social media and online e-commerce websites. In our space, people couldn't go out, although they had projects to shoot, for example, filmmakers and video creators that we are working with, and they had to use our kind of solutions, digital assets, stock footage. So, yeah.
Right, because they can't film new stuff, so
yeah, they cannot do anything outdoors.
More reliance on the stuff that's already out there. And Avi, regarding your portfolio companies, did they see this when they saw that things were actually going to be all right and perhaps even better than they had expected? Did that allow them to kind of do things that perhaps they were a bit nervous about doing before, to kind of take bolder bets in terms of their business and their interaction with their customers?
I think a lot of our portfolio is geared to the new economy, the information age, and as such, what we found is that companies like Monday, like Riskified, saw unprecedented growth in that people were working from home or there were more e-commerce transactions happening. And the shift to online was increasing at a really unprecedented rate. I mean, if e-commerce was growing 1% per year into the retail base and versus offline, it suddenly was growing at 4 or 5%, or just unbelievable growth. And so those companies benefited tremendously. What's interesting to see is that there are companies, we have a company out of New York called Broadloom, which does support for small, medium businesses in the flooring space. And what we found was that initially those businesses suddenly stopped. Everything stopped with a closure. And then when they opened for the last 6 months, there's been unprecedented amount of transactions and interest and revenue coming in, because when people were closed at home for the first month, they were depressed, they were trying to figure out what to do. But when they started to see that this was going to last for a while, they started to do renovations themselves at home. And so you find certain aspects of the economy which have really benefited. By the same token, it's important to state that there's a whole world that's been left behind. And the disparity between the haves and the have-nots has become so black and white, where people who are not technology-focused and are not reliant primarily on technology to fulfill their daily work are left behind. And you see it in food banks, you see it in food lines and things like that in the United States and elsewhere. So the growth is not uniform in the economy. There's been big growth and also areas in the economy which unfortunately doesn't affect us, which fortunately doesn't affect us. But there's been areas in the economy which have been really badly affected, and those areas are going to need to be addressed. And funnily enough, that is the next wave of opportunity that as a VC we see as an opportunity to invest in.
Well, that's interesting. You made a few interesting points there about, not just people realizing that actually things may be okay and they can go ahead and do renovations, for example. There's also the pent-up demand and people realizing that maybe they don't want to be living in a city in a shoebox, they want to be living further afield, and then that also gives impetus to those kind of related markets. And it's also an interesting point that you make about the kind of what some people are calling the K-shaped recovery, that obviously some firms are doing wonderfully and some are kind of going down the other. Interested to know about these opportunities that you're talking about going forward. I mean, where would you see the kind of, let's say, the non-digital areas of the economy? Where would you see the opportunities for a rebound or for growth?
So there are a bunch of opportunities, one area we see, for example, is in re-education, reskilling people, and moving people from original jobs that they had, for example, car salespeople, into SDR jobs in high tech, or SDR jobs for car sales. Now that they can work at home, they don't have to be at a car lot trying to manually sell, and that affects a lot of folks who are in their 40s, 50s, and early 60s who need something to do. In healthcare, we're seeing unbelievable change in terms of allowing people who are uninsured to buy either specific insurance or to buy the doctors and the medical services that they need, but doing it in a way that they can get those services fulfilled across a wide area, and they're not stuck in the area that they live because of video conferencing and things like that. Doctors who are in rural areas who, for example, don't have a lot of work can now bid on patients in high density areas, and so on and so forth. It kind of carries on.
So still a lot of opportunity for digitization and for people to kind of, who perhaps haven't been brought along in this wave of growth that we've seen, to kind of be a part of it. And Shachar, you made an interesting point about, you told us about the demand growing, and we kind of see, in the stock market, for example, the companies that did really well when people were locked down, and then when it looks like there's going to be a vaccine, all being well, that those companies perhaps do less well, and the traditional, let's call them, companies do better. But I guess that going forward, you still see, many opportunities for people to use your assets to build kind of, creative businesses and to take advantage of all the other opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, so I think that after the vaccine is out, things are going to be, like business as usual, and for us it's a good thing as well. We saw that big players that spend a lot of money usually on online advertisement went out. And I think we will see more and more of them going back in, like all the tourism industry and all the traveling and everything. But for us, I know.
But do you think the growth that you've seen is, excuse me, is sustainable? Do you think, how much of the changes that we've seen in terms of, excuse me, how much of the it's not coronavirus, I promise. How much of the changes that you've seen do you think are likely to be permanent? I mean, you talked about you were doubling anyway before the pandemic. You saw a boost to growth during it. One imagines that would probably slow down once things are quote unquote back to normal or back to the new normal.
Yeah. So actually, our products are subscription-based products, and most of our revenues now coming from retention, from people keeping, like renewing the subscription with us. And I think that this year is a boost for us in this term. I hope that next year we'll see the retention rate going up. Where this year the retention rate went down a little bit at first, and we had an increase in new users. And hopefully we'll see next year that we'll see an increase in both retention rate and new users. So I guess it will be good for us for next year as well.
And you talked already, I think, about boosting your marketing spend to take advantage of new demand. And vis-a-vis your portfolio companies, we talked about, I think you mentioned Monday.com and Riskified and others like that. Have they also been seeing this opportunity as a good time to kind of invest more money in marketing to try to get more business that will perhaps be there for the long term?
Yes, I think that investing in marketing, investing in generating new markets or leveraging what's happening is certainly an opportunity. Some businesses will continue the rate of growth. Some businesses will go back to a more stable growth pattern. But important to state that kind of the amount of business that's coming out of the consumer that's shifted from the offline world to the online world now is not going back. So there's a new level, or a step change in growth and a step change in revenues. And if you think about the entire online experience and how much it's grown over this last period, it's only maybe potentially, we'll see in a year's time, but it's probably only doubled from what it's done before. And yet that is still a tiny percentage of commerce as a whole. So the opportunity, the shift from offline to online is happening. It's happening at a much rapid pace, and it's not going back.
Okay, well, we'll see if your predictions come true, but I'm afraid we've actually run out of time. So I want to really thank you both for coming in to speak with me. So thank you, Shachar Eisenberg, CMO of Artlist, and Avi Eyal, co-founder of Entree Capital. Really appreciate your taking the time and to share your insights and experiences with us and, of course, with the audience watching at home. So thank you again, and hope to see you soon. And again, in person, great to actually have some human interaction. So have a great day. Now, I know time seems to run at a different pace these days, but that still went super quickly as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I just have a couple of minutes left to salute all of you who have tuned in this past hour and to thank all of our guests for sharing their insights with us. They were Andrew and Cash from Reich, Shachar from Artlist, and Avi from Entree Capital, and of course, Dana from McKinsey. Really appreciate all of them taking the time to join us, and all of you watching as well for taking the time to do so. We're always, of course, keen to improve our events, so we'll be sharing a feedback form with you at the end of this broadcast or as a link on the chat. If you could do us a favour and fill it out and share your suggestions, we will then endeavour to do things even better next time. And hopefully next year we'll see you all in person, and I'll have to wear trousers. No, I am wearing trousers. We're looking forward to a successful 2021, and we encourage you to stay in close touch with your Google POCs for the latest updates and any assistance you may need. So that's it, I'm afraid. I'm Elliot Gotkin, and I've been coming to you live from Tel Aviv. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a very happy holiday season. Bye-bye.